Got anything to say for yourself?
Tap that one lightly, it might knock you over.
Old fashions tonight on Liberty Without Compromise. To be revealed later. Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. We are the only local liberty-minded program in Kootenai County where we continue to expose the political power players. And let me tell you, tonight, I think we've reached the pinnacle. I mean, it might all be downhill from here because we're exposing some political power players, politicians, and influencers. Sometimes those are your religious leaders. We're your hosts, Dan and Donna Wilson. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. You can get involved right there in the comment section on whichever platform you're watching. We're on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Instagram. It all works. For those of you listening back on our podcast, be sure to catch us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. so that you can join right on in on that conversation. And a reminder, opinions expressed are ours only, not necessarily that of our advertisers, affiliates, or sponsors. On tonight's program, Kootenai County's power players are scrambling, and the truth is finally taking flight. First, we're going to cover the helicopter debacle where Sheriff Bob Norris and his backers are now shifting the goalposts yet again. They keep doing it. The county's nonprofit helicopter is suddenly maybe possibly being transferred into Kootenai County Sheriff's Office possession. Now, that's a move that raises red flags about accountability, funding, and whether taxpayers are about to get stuck footing the bill for someone else's vanity project. Then, Coeur d'Alene Mayor candidate John Pulsipher, he joins us live tonight to explain why on earth did he send his now, well, I'm calling it infamous letter to sitting Mayor Woody McEvers, a letter that urged McEvers to pressure Councilman Dan Gookin to drop out of the race. What was the real intent behind it, and did the media get the story right? We're going to be talking to John just a little bit ahead here in the program. Finally, our most explosive segment yet. We're releasing never-before-heard audio from a private phone call involving Pastor Paul Van Noy. We've been told it wasn't real. It was never real. Well, we're proving tonight it was real. Where he reveals how deeply religion and politics are intertwined in Kootenai County. And the conversation sheds light on his behind-the-scenes influence and what it really looks like when faith, power, and politics collide. That's all part of tonight's episode. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Dan Wilson.
The Liberty Without Compromise broadcast number 42. Thanks for joining us wherever you happen to be. If you love liberty, then this is the place for you, where we talk about the truth. We are always in pursuit of the truth. We are not sold out to any one entity or political affiliation group, you name it, other than Jesus Christ and the truth. We promote the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights as the supreme law of the land. Tonight, we are going to discuss chaos right here locally. And let me tell you, the amount of chaos that we're watching in just the past couple weeks has been astounding. One of the very first things that I want to say, we recorded a quick live last night, more to test some equipment.
Oh, yeah, that.
It didn't come out quite as clean on the video that we wanted, so we're going to do this again. Last week, we did not have a broadcast. We were out of state, and I began getting word from reliable sources that a current candidate for Coeur d'Alene mayor has been telling people that I am endorsing another one of their opponents in the Coeur d'Alene race for mayor, and that is absolutely 100% false. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm not choosing or endorsing any of the four. I like all four, but I'm not going to get into telling you who you need to vote for. You need to get off your butt and you need to take all the vast research that is out there, and there's a lot, whether it's us, whether it's Watchman Ministry, whether it is any other source, not the KCRCC's recommendation. Do your own research and come to your own conclusion. But here, we are not going to, for the most of the time, there can be an exception, but the rule is we are not endorsing anybody right here on this channel.
Yeah, I was asking you the other day, will you ever endorse anybody, or is this like a straight across? Are we making this policy at Liberty Without Compromise that we just don't?
I'm going to say that we have the liberty to change if we want to, but right now, we are not a political organization. We are here to continually expose those people that are doing things that are not congruent with the rule of law, with the Bill of Rights, with the Constitution, with whatever is true. But we are not here to promote any one specific candidate.
I think as you have become a leader in the community, there are more people looking toward you to go, well, I at least want to know what your opinion is. There's that. But before you respond to that, I did forget to mention, for those of you who are watching us live, make sure to share this feed right now to your page or profile so more of us locally can get involved in the conversation. And you can do that in the comment section on whichever platform you're joining us. And we've got a special guest coming up tonight, John Pulsipher. And then probably the most, the juiciest or the most provocative segment is we have never before heard audio from Pastor Paul Van Noy. We were accused probably well over a year ago of putting out some transcripts and
that we read to protect
and it was, oh, this is fake and it's made fun of, and lots of laughing emojis from the cronies that surround Pastor Paul Van Noy as a political power player, which we will expose tonight that he indeed is. And
well, he's a wannabe. He's a wannabe political.
Well, he sees himself that way. Yeah. Well, I cut you off on the as you become a leader in the community. You know, we were making the point that you haven't endorsed any candidate, but people really are looking toward you for an opinion because, for lack of leadership all over the county from elected officials, they want to know, give me some direction. If they're viewing you as a guy with a principled, and that's something we've spoken about a lot, is that you have many loud voices in politics that these are not principled people. They will move with whatever the current is of the moment. If it serves me at the moment and it furthers my cause and furthers my party, the principle doesn't matter.
Do we have principled people here in local politics? I mean, let's start with this. Why in the world is the KCRCC, who continues to put kings into position, potentates, why in the hell are they getting involved in nonpartisan races? That's what I'd like to know. If they are so hardcore freaking Republican like they tell us, then why in the hell are they getting right into the midst of all these mayoral, city council, and other elections that are not partisan? I mean, we heard last year they have to endorse Republicans. You liars, you freaking hypocrites. Ask yourself, why in the hell is Brent Reagan attempting to take over every office in this county? Whether it's all the local cities or whether it happens to be, you know, any of the four cities around. I almost lost my train of thought there for a second. I probably should take a little bit of drink of this nice old fashioned that I just made for us.
And you were giving me the side eye, boy.
But here's the thing. The four candidates that are running right now, I like all of them. I have issues with each and every one of them, as everybody does. There isn't anybody that is perfect, but you guys have to weigh in. What is more important? Somebody that is incompetent, that's just kind of a, you know, free spirit, somebody that supports hate speech, penalties for hate speech, somebody that has been controversial with things in the past, somebody that was dishonest in business, sue me if you really think you want to sue me, or somebody that is extremely green. You guys have to make the choice if you're in Coeur d'Alene, but you have to ask yourself, again, why is KCRCC meddling in these nonpartisan races? And I think that is really the takeaway that we have to have is, what are they doing?
Well, because it's not, they say it's party over, they will outwardly say it's party over principle.
Yeah.
But then nonpartisan races, they're making it about party because party's over principle. So you just need supreme power. You just need every seat that exists, whether it's partisan or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they're proving it in real time, and yet there are still people confused about this KCRCC situation.
Now, little housekeeping. Last week, or I was contacted last week, and actually the day after our previous broadcast, which was actually 2 weeks ago tonight. So the day after our last broadcast 2 weeks ago, it started coming into me that Debbie Loftman believes that I was unfair to her in the last interview, that I was unusually hard on her, and that I didn't do the same hard things to the other candidates. Let's address that a little bit. Number one, if you go back and watch that video, you will notice, as Don and I did, that Debbie, super nice, had a lot of stones, bigger stones than Brent Reagan, to actually, and Bob Norris, to come on and to talk to us, knowing that the elephant in the room was these legal issues and questions in California. She came along and she went ahead and answered questions. And it was obvious to us by the changing of I want to talk about this now. We never got to ask her about the 5% fee that she was charging. Part of the charges in suspending her license and the restitution was that she was, charged with fraudulently taking a percentage or marking up fees on clients' property and services.
And I think that
she didn't answer that.
Well, that was the part of the interview that was deemed unfair because that happened really once she was taken offline. But like you said, it was very intentional when she was live that she redirected. It was evident, okay, I'm done. I'm done being in the hot seat. I want to end this conversation that we're having on a high note, talking about what I have to offer. Mm-hmm. And that's why didn't make it into the conversation.
And at the end, I said, look, some people believe that she was dishonest when she filled out the survey at the KCRCC.
And that was
if Debbie, John Pulsipher's coming on here tonight, he gets a chance to rebut some things that have been said. Debbie, you still have the opportunity to come back on if you want to address these things or tell me that I was unfair, or you want to voice how we should have spoken to you, what kind of questions we should have asked. I mean, that's all open. But the thing about all of this is that the KCRCC does have every one of their vetted individuals has a target on their back. And that's just the nature of the game. That started last year for me and for you. So nobody that has a KCRCC endorsement, if they are unqualified, are going to get a pass with us. So, I mean, that's about all I can say on it. If Debbie thinks that I was unfair, and there's rumors that she was talking to people, and I've got some of the screenshots suing me for defamation. Debbie, that's a stupid thing to say.
Well, isn't that the thing that everybody says now? That's the thing everybody's throwing around. Aaron Barnard, Stephanie Fetzer, we're all suing each other. Mm-hmm. It's just the threat that goes out. It's just the thing we do now.
Well, we're going to talk next week more when we bring up the part 2 of the segment that we're going to play tonight.
Yeah.
And, good old Stephanie and Aaron are going to get their day. They're going to get their day.
Well, they like their laughing emojis, and they say, yeah, right, you're going to be exposed. You've been saying that for a year. Yeah. Well, it's been a year in coming and a year of fact finding. So I think it's going to be worth it. Coming up on the program, if you're just joining us, we've got that Bob Norris pesky helicopter program. It just isn't going to go away. It's not going to go away. And it kind of seems wanting to reallocate that, reposition it.
Well, let's go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and play that
We're going
video.
into that next, and then coming up, we've got never before heard audio from Pastor Paul Van Noy. It was a phone conversation. We were accused over a year ago of bringing transcripts and.
Oh, it wasn't a year. It was actually January on our podcast.
It was just January.
Yeah, January. It seems like a year.
It seems like forever since campaign stuff. But it's been some time. It's been months, and we read those transcripts, and then we were accused of, Dan Wilson's feet have been held to the fire more than anybody, more than any public official or
that's facts.
A public
Those are
person
facts.
or elected official in the county. Bring facts and evidence. So tonight we are even further proving that this conversation, this recorded phone call with Pastor Paul Van Noy, it did indeed happen, and you are going to hear him as never before in his own voice, saying what the dude says. And I'm telling you guys, it is not good. So that's coming up. But now the helicopter debacle.
This helicopter, folks, is not going away. Every time it seems like it should be dead. You guys know 2 years was supposed to be the trial run. $10,000 was all it was going to cost us. And then lo and behold, we see last week the Board of County Commissioners during a status update meeting met to discuss what seems to be Lieutenant Ellis's offer, because he represents not only the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, but also the non-profit corporation, Kootenai Regional Air Support Unit, that has this helicopter. We're going to play this video coming right up. Donna, if you get that cued for me. And we're going to see what their new scam is.
Donation agreement. It's a discussion item. And Commissioner Duncan.
Yes, and I see Lieutenant Ellis if he wants to come up as well.
Come on down.
This has been quite the process of figuring out the best way for the operation to move forward. And apparently this idea was brought up 2 boards ago, and it did not get 2 votes. And so it was dropped. But what we came to realize is the way that SAR is operating is the ideal way that the helicopter program should also operate. So in this whole process of looking at insurance and legalities and operations, it really, sorry, I'm a little froggy today. It really would be beneficial if the board would consider the helicopter being donated. Everything else would be donated as well, just kind of how the SAR operates. So there's the nonprofit that funds operations. So there isn't anything financially that would change. There'll be some savings on the insurance, and it will be way more legally defensible and easier to manage.
Thoughts on that?
You said way more. Well, there's still troubles out there. What are we going to have with this? And why do we need a helicopter?
Sure. So the helicopter, again, is funded by donations from businessmen in the area who want this resource. We have a lot of backcountry issues, and when it was running for its year, maybe 16 months, it had some success stories. So again, the difference only would be the name of the ownership of the helicopter. Everything else, the funding would be the same. And
you know, I think it's important that we go back a couple years too and talk about this, because this was pitched to the board as a zero cost increase project, and that it was going to be a 2-year pilot program, just 2 years. And we were going to see what happens. And, you know, my big fear is that, you know, and I think this is something you've said before, you know, when you let the camel's nose into the tent, right, you end up with mission creep. Okay. And so I'm not averse to this idea of having a helicopter, but what I am averse to is saying yes based upon just anecdotal stories. So I would like to look at, you know, the dates that this helicopter was in operation, what the missions were, what the results of those missions were, and, and look at it from how does it actually benefit? Because I'm hard pressed to believe that if we take this in as an asset of the county, that it's going to remain at $10,000 forever. And if that's the case, then it needs to be structured that way, that if it goes one penny beyond that, then it just doesn't get funded. Or we need to see the benefit so we can look at this and say that the cost associated with a project like this, the benefit far exceeds the cost.
Yes.
And that's how we should be making these decisions, data-driven, not anecdotal stories. I do know that it did save one woman who, it was a big deal. But again, we have to look at the overall picture. What has it done? Its missions, who's it served, things like that. And then I think it would be a much easier decision for the board to look at, what's involved with making it an asset of the county.
Well, I think back in May, Commissioner Martin, we actually presented the actual statistics from everything, and I believe it was about 140 missions. Multiple lives have been saved. I know the families.
Yeah, but just real quick, multiple lives is what is that? What number is that? And how is that arrived at?
I can tell you for sure those two attest that their survival is to the helicopter. There's two of them, beyond just the other rescues we have or operations. But I can tell you that two families are attributing the helicopter to saving their loved ones' lives. Mm-hmm. That's how I say it. And I believe one life is worth it. Right now, the county has not paid anything more than the $10,000 that they were already paying to Spokane County. So you're asking for hard numbers.
False.
They have not paid a dime more.
Mm-hmm.
False.
Well, I wouldn't mind just seeing a report up all the way through, just, all the different missions. Absolutely. And just seeing, what the result was. I don't dispute the fact that there are situations where the helicopter can make a difference. The problem is that we have a finite amount of resources. So if, if this turns into something where there's that mission creep and it just, the expense keeps inching up over time, I think there needs to be at least some accountability to justify that expense. I'm not averse to this, but I would like to revisit that because I've seen language that says like it's been called for 14 search and rescue missions. But what were the results of those? And, and how much of it is attributed to the helicopter and how much of it is attributed to other factors? And again, it's not for any other reason than we just be honest and look at these things together. So
yeah, that's an easy statistic to provide to the board.
Okay.
We track every flight and what the outcomes of those flights were. So it's an easy one to do.
Yeah.
And again, we haven't asked for anything beyond the $10,000 that was already paid to Spokane County, and there is no intention for the nonprofit to do it. They continue to want to fund the insurance, the cost of it. So I don't see where any request for additional funds. Again, as you said, the 2-year pilot program with a zero balance increase maintains that. So we're not asking for more money.
Yep, I understand.
They want to supply a free asset to the community.
I understand.
And I'll mention there'll be a revisionary clause in there. So if the county ever decides that we are out of the helicopter business, then it would revert back to the nonprofit.
Understandable. Okay.
I will email the spreadsheet to all three of you.
That'd be great. Commissioner Eberlein, any questions? Any other questions?
Okay. So let's take a quick trip down memory lane. 2 years, we were told, 22. It was pitched. It was approved in 23 and 24. Half of the 2 years, it never flew. It flew 140 missions. When you think about a year having 365 days, that helicopter was hardly out. A couple weeks ago, we showed you the videos where we said they met together and they were having problems with insurance. The insurance that we told you guys a year ago they were deficient in. When they got the new quotes, they found out that it was going to cost the nonprofit $35,000 to $50,000 in additional insurance coverage because they weren't insured correctly the 2 years, or was it a year that they were actually actively flying?
And that's being misrepresented as somehow it was all done correctly in the beginning and insurance costs have just gone up because of this economy or something. But the reality was it was never insured properly in the first place. Had there been a catastrophe,
we would have been on the hook. Now, so here what they did a couple weeks ago, they said at this meeting, well, if it's not funded, then they're it's not going to be a helicopter program. So now these desperate individuals, they are so upset that they are now willing to give. They're so desperate, they're willing to give the search and rescue. So that's nonprofit, which they were funneling money through in the first place, from my understanding, in order to fund the helicopter, because they didn't have their real 501c3 license, despite what they said. So they're going to give it to the search and rescue. So my question is, Leslie said, we have this helicopter because businessmen in the community want it. So here's something for all of you businessmen out there. If you really want something, just get your pool of guys together and fund it, and then the government will operate it for you. And you can just call it, a nonprofit. So pick your poison, pick whatever your passion is. But they're going to take this helicopter that they're so passionate to support, but they can't get $35,000 on a budget that should be $750,000 a year to operate this helicopter. If they were going to truly operate, which they have not, because they haven't been able to fund it, but yet somehow they're going to give it to the search and rescue, and then they're going to finally get the money to pay the insurance. Why aren't these rich businessmen like Todd from Aspen Homes and Terry Forrester from Labor Consultants and the guys from Super One and the Tribe? I mean, why aren't they continually giving? So we heard about all these missions, 140, and 2 lives were saved. And Damon, you asked, 2 lives were saved. Well, if we're going to use that same argument, then here's where we're going to put this. We could save probably 100 lives in Kootenai County every year if we had on every street corner an ambulance and a dedicated police officer, a deputy. We could if we're talking about saving, the ultimate goal is, no matter what the cost, no matter what the red tape is, we have to save lives, and we're going to say the amount of lives saved, however minuscule. The sky is the limit for a helicopter that costs anywhere from a minimum of $500 to $1,500 an hour to operate.
Well, this is exactly the issue when you've got somebody in any kind of power, elected official, that is pushing something on you because they're swaying your emotion.
Yeah.
Because they have repeated this over and over for the last year. If one life is saved, Leslie Duncan has said it. The guys on KCSO, Norris has said it himself. Whoever his representatives are that are coming out trying to push this program. If one life is saved, and they've done it with the license plate readers.
Why
as
isn't
well.
it funded right now? Why are the businessmen? I mean, if they can afford a $750 million helicopter, what's it to them to donate? Between the 5 of them or 6 of them, $35,000 a year.
Well, because I can speculate why. They're pushing around where the liability is. Once they found out there was that much liability, it's not for lack of funds. These guys can come up with funds. And they know the guys in Vegas that have never ending funds. It's not for lack of funds.
Don Ahern?
Yeah.
Don Ahern?
It has nothing to do.
Ahern.
They are bound and determined to have this helicopter in Kootenai County for whatever reason we don't know. And if it's an entire program with lack of transparency, so at what point do we think this is transparent whatsoever? They're pushing it on you because 1 or 2 lives that we can.
They don't even know. They can't even 100% articulate that, because the damn helicopter doesn't have hoist capability.
No.
So you have to get other ground units in to save whoever it is that they see. And by the way, Mark Ellis, Lieutenant Ellis, you are a bald-faced liar. Every time you say it only costs $10,000, you are a freaking liar, Ellis. As a cop, have some integrity. Here's the deal. That $10,000 doesn't include the money that it cost us to put that on a flatbed and take 2 deputies and drive that thing down to California to put on the $100,000 worth of equipment that the county gave to you, to a private organization, to fund your forward-looking infrared and your spotlight, let alone the cost of the additional attorneys that had to come in to figure out how this whole deal, this contract, this MOU should be done. Quit lying, Ellis. Quit lying to the taxpayers in this county. We're not stupid, and we're not going away. So here's the deal, folks. They're going to, and Leslie Duncan appears to be leading this. I've sent her numerous emails. She does not respond, but it was a 2-year trial. It was a failure. And now they're going to cram it down our throats instead of paying $10,000 a year to Spokane County. And if it's under search and rescue, are they going to use it for law enforcement and interdiction, or is it only going to be used for search and rescue?
They apparently don't need to answer those questions. They'll trial now and figure all that out later. We've got Coeur d'Alene mayoral candidate John Pulsipher coming up to give us his side of the story as to why he sent this letter to sitting Mayor Woody McEvers. So he's hanging. We're going to get to you in just a couple of minutes. What do you think is the number one reason, if you had to tell somebody, why is Dan Wilson still this many months later talking about this godforsaken helicopter? What is the number one reason that you are as passionate about this subject and holding them to account? What is that number one reason that this matters to you that much?
Integrity and the liability of the county and the taxpayers. I've been watching the county commissioner meetings for several years now. Last year, when the economy was doing a little bit better, the sky was the limit with the amount of additional perks that they wanted to give to county employees in order to retain a county employee. Because after all, a county employee could go to the private sector and make so much more. So we have to be competitive. And those of us in business were looking down the road going, yeah, this economy is about ready to tank. And people aren't going to have the plush jobs. And government should be like the private sector. We don't always have a guarantee that we're going to have work. So with this budget issues that are going on, and Bob Norris grew that budget exponentially again this year. Remember, it started out at $30 million a year when he took office, and it's over $55 million. And they don't take anything out of his budget because it's all for officer safety. The taxpayers can only afford 3% every year. Why aren't we looking at doing Doge and cutting? No Doge is happening in this county, despite Bruce Matari running his mouth claiming that that's what they do. No, you don't. You haven't had independent forensic audits, Bruce. You haven't had an independent forensic audit of the sheriff's office ever.
Well, who was the only one talking Doge before Doge was a thing? That was part of.
It's on the record.
Part of your platform when you were running for sheriff.
Yeah.
Now the one thing, so Bruce Matari and that he's playing like good cop, bad cop thing going on.
He's
there.
A change agent. I keep telling everybody
we know.
he's a certified change agent.
In that clip, you watch him in action, but he says, we've got the camel's nose is in the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to end up with a mission creep. Mm-hmm. And I was like, mission creep?
You've already ended up with mission creep, Bruce.
So for anybody like me who doesn't know mission creep, that is the gradual expansion of a mission project or organization beyond the original goals or scope. Matari's a master at knowing these, like the buzz phrases, like sliding them right in there. Yeah.
What do you think? I'd like to bring on our next guest before we make him hold too much longer.
I'm going to bring him right up on the screen, and then he can join in when when we ask a question that makes sense. You want to?
John, how are you?
Hey, good. How you guys doing?
Good. John Pulsipher running for Coeur d'Alene mayor, one of 4 candidates.
I gotta put this up there.
We had you.
John's good. Don't be mad, John. You got to have a sense of humor on this program.
Oh, that is hilarious.
Yeah, got to have a sense of humor.
So, John, we had you on a couple weeks ago, and we've had all 4 of you on now. A couple, I think, days after you were on, a letter was shared with me. I did not publish it because I couldn't guarantee the authenticity of this letter. But then the Coeur d'Alene Press came out with their story. And what we were led to believe is that you wrote a letter to current mayor Woody McEvers and basically said, hey, we need to strategize together to make certain that the KCRCC does not take over the mayor seat, that candidate, nor should Gookin be anywhere near the mayor seat. So let's strategize together. Now, we've all read the paper. We've talked about it. Give us your take and walk us through why you did that and your philosophy.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate it. And
we lost your volume.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah,
now
we're
we
good.
can.
Okay. Sorry about that.
So I had watched your recent episode where you mentioned that, and I thought, man, this story I feel like makes me look bad, and you guys were very gracious, and I wanted to come back on too and, kind of explain that. So I appreciate that. First of all, it's interesting to hear that people say they saw a copy of the letter, because in retrospect, I kind of wish that when the press contacted me about the story, they gave me a phone call, they sent me an email. I almost wish I just said, please print the entire letter. And I don't know if what you saw was the entire letter, because I feel like when the press ran a story, they definitely had a spin on it, and they did not put in the last paragraph, which says, I will consult the city attorney and counsel if this is of interest. I'm talking to Woody in the letter.
Right.
I say, I wanted to bring the idea to you first, Woody, out of respect. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Regardless, I will add it to my campaign messaging in a few weeks. So a few things that points out. One, first of all, I'm not in a position to offer him a job in the city. It's an idea that I'm throwing out there that if he's interested in, I would talk to the city attorney and the city council, and, they may tell me, yeah, nice idea, but that's impossible, or yeah, that's possible. And I was going to campaign on it. One, because Woody is a nice guy. He hasn't driven the city into the ground. He's been a good status quo, but it's kind of like a leaf blowing in the wind. So I was looking at a way to, show respect, but also maintain some of the knowledge that we have there. I still believe I'm a better candidate than him to serve as mayor right now, but that was the intent. The KCRCC, it's interesting because, so you talk about the KCRCC. When I put my hat in to serve as mayor, the same day I filed my candidacy, before they've met me, before they've looked at any paperwork from me, 2 different people called me with ties to the KCRCC, and they said, hey, John, could you please consider switching from running for mayor to running for city council? There's some unopposed seats there, and, you'll get better grassroots support. So what that told me is the KCRCC had already chosen their candidate before they even looked at, and I'm a Republican. I've been Republican my whole life. And before even talking to me or doing that, they had decided. So that kind of goes to some of the things you talk about. Now another thing, interestingly enough, so the North Idaho Republicans, NIR, who recently I've thought, okay, they're endorsing good people. They endorsed Dan Gookin September 19th in the Coeur d'Alene Press. There's an article where they say, these are the people we're endorsing. And that's 6 days before the first candidate forum. There was no publicity yet. I barely had a web page up. So it's kind of the same thing. They decided who they were going to endorse before anything had happened, before the community could get to know us. So that's a concern. When you talk about look into the candidates for yourself, don't just take somebody else's word for it. Both of these organizations have not done their homework. They never called me. They never talked to me. The North Idaho Republicans, they asked for an answer to questions like day 2. And surely if they make their opinion based on, 12 questions that you ask and they don't interview people, that's pretty sad to me. They don't look and wait for a candidate form. I don't think that's the best way to make an endorsement.
Again, my question is, I understand why, but let's ask this question. Why are either the North Idaho Republicans or the KCRCC getting involved in nonpartisan races? What do you say?
Yeah, exactly. And so I just got in the mail today, or recently, this flyer that's, sorry, my camera's not going to do that, but it says North Idaho Republicans, and one of the 4 things they highlight for endorsing leadership that puts North Idaho first says balanced budgets. And unfortunately, their candidate, Dan Gookin, has not, the last 2 years, the city has not balanced a budget without using reserve funds to the tune of $1.8 to $2 million. And that's not how reserve funds are supposed to be used. So it's kind of double speak. But anyway, the day the press contacted me about this letter, I published to my campaign Instagram, my campaign website, the letter in its entirety with the rationale behind it. So
yeah, we've got that letter. We're going to pull that letter up while you're talking.
Oh,
that
yeah,
way
okay.
people
So
can
you do,
see.
that is a copy. Yeah. So that's accurate for sure.
And so when you gave it to Woody, did you ever believe that he was going to in turn do with it what he did? Did you have any suspicions, or was it all in good faith?
I mean, no, I didn't. I thought here's an idea. And part of it is like, I called some people that have served as mayor before in Northern Idaho, not Coeur d'Alene, but I won't say the city. I don't want to like highlight people, and they told me things about Dan and Woody, like personal things about Woody that I was like, oh, it sounds like if I'm not planning on taking the mayoral salary, it sounds like, Woody could use it. And if he still wants to serve in the city, let's find another way that he can do it. To send him a letter, I had to look up where he lives, right? And so, I understand a little bit more about him. I drew some conclusions that may or may not be accurate, but I thought, dang, I don't want, he's like 77 years old. I don't want to see him get kicked to the curb. If he needs to have an income, if he needs to have insurance, like that's part of the reason behind it. And I thought he would at least respond. I gave him my cell phone number, my email. And to be honest with you, like a few days passed by, a week passed by, I kind of forgot about the letter too. And, I talked with some people and they said, instead of like, why don't you, they gave me the idea, donate the salary to the first responders fund. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. And, I was super excited about that. I forgot all about the letter until the press called me. But
why do you think that rather than responding to the letter, like you said, so many days had transpired, you yourself had kind of put it to the back of your mind. Why do you think if the letter's leaked, I mean, it obviously comes from source number one. Why do you think his response was to leak it out rather than have the conversation with you?
I could speculate. It would be pure speculation. I'm sure people love that, but we had our first candidate forum. And I don't feel like Woody performed really well. Maybe he thought, man, I need to get some attention. Look, you can read the letter almost as an endorsement of Woody, right? Because I'm saying like, look, Woody, if Dan drops out, I'll drop out too. You can be the mayor, right? So maybe he's saying like, hey, press, look at me. Like, even this other candidate thinks I'd be better than Dan. So
what do you have to say? What do you have to say to those that would go, this was bribery, and then and then I'm curious, if you had it to do over again, would you send the letter again? So what were you putting out a bribe, making an attempt for a bribe? Would you do it again?
So bribery, I mean, if I really wanted to bribe somebody, I would not do it in writing, right? That's like the stupidest thing you could ever do. And why would I say, I'll give my future salary to you, but we have to run it by city council? Like, I mean, I own companies in Coeur d'Alene. I could easily say, hey, Woody, don't worry, come work for me in my dental practice, and you can be a patient care liaison, and we'll give you a job, and you'll have insurance. And I'll be like, I don't know, that would be a bribe. It's truly about serving the city. And then your second question was, would I do it over again? Definitely, it felt like, it's the only thing that not really my opponents are not talking about it, but their surrogates are. Like Mary Souza keeps writing that, and people are saying, oh, don't vote for John because his character is questionable, because look, he tried to make a backdoor deal. And
Mary said that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, she wrote a letter to the editor and to her entire precinct. She wrote an email that was very just calling into question my character. And so I didn't think that letter, the way I had written it, I thought it made it very clear, like, hey, look, if you're interested, we'll go about this every legal way. Like, so I kind of, probably a little naive of me to expect that people who have served in our community or who haven't, like Mary Souza has been a state senator. She ran for mayor. She's in theory very like connected politically. And so I'm probably a little naive to think that she's also doing all of that out of the goodness of her heart and, wants to be an honest person, because she's definitely being very dishonest in the way that she's portraying me, and also, even to be fair, Debbie Loftman, like, she totally lied about her in her letter to the editor, saying she's only been here for 2 years, which is inaccurate. And you could know that if you pay any attention to what's been going on. But
so Damon has commented. I'm going to read a couple of these, and then I want to get your comment. I'm going to comment as well. NIR was very reluctant to do the endorsements, but we could not let the KCRCC be the only one. So sorry about that, John. Woody is a good man. Okay, Damon. So I get that. I get that it's chess. You're trying to outmaneuver Brent Reagan and all of that dysfunction over there. Good on you. But here's the problem. Here really is the problem. Nobody should be sitting in that freaking seat that doesn't earn it. And I think that the people, and this is something that pisses me off about this damn county more than anything I've ever in politics, is every person that is running their organizations are cowards, because every one of you guys should be in a four-way debate. Anybody can say whatever they want to online. They can say it in their campaign literature, but I want to see how you perform live, not with any of these scripted cards, when they say, well, I was at a forum. Well, who cares? I was at forums too. And depending on who the MC was, is whether you got good cards or not. But I think that part of proving your stuff is saying, I can actually sit down and debate. So Damon, again, I want to take you to task on this, brother. Just because John may not have, in your words, the qualifications, what are you basing that on? Have you seen the man perform? I mean, he may bomb and you could say, well, I checked that one off. Or you may look and see, here's a guy that's been in business for a lot of years and he knows how to hold his own, and he actually understands how to talk to people that are coming to the city council and to the mayor's office for solutions. But I'm tired of this. NIR, if you guys want to be taken serious, then get your asses in gear and start demanding that we have live debates. Because until then, you're nothing more than this with the KCRCC, a bunch of spoiled brats fighting with who's going to be the purest on each side and who's the most fundamental. I'm sick of it. The voters deserve to have debates. So anyway, John, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. What question did you want me to answer there?
What do you think about the debates?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to do a debate. It's interesting. I mean, on the one hand, it's been a very cordial election season, and that's been, there's something sacred about our country where we can all go, we can present our ideas in front of everybody, and then people can choose who to vote for. Like, that is special. But also, like, if you withhold hard questions or put people on the spot, then I think you're missing out. It's easy for candidates to hide behind like their written state. Like, you just had my wife sitting up there. Like, some candidates will just read off a paper and they're like, oh, this is what I stand for. And so it definitely, you miss out on that.
Yeah. And again, my hat's off to you, because as a businessman to a businessman, I believe that your intentions are good, and I believe that you have pure reason to run. And I like to see guys that have actually employed people. And I'm not saying that the others have not, just to be clear, but people that have actually employed folks that are saying, you know what, I don't need this job for the money. And by the way, that takes balls, brother, to say that you're going to give your salary back. I did something very similar where I said, I'm going to cap mine at, a 99 out of the 150, and I'm going to donate it back to the volunteer organization, the sheriff's office that I wanted. And I was lambasted all the way from, public elected officials down to people in the KCRCC. But let me tell you, you and I both know that self-made men don't have to take the job for the money. We're doing it because we want to serve. And so I'm going to tell you again, hats off to you, brother.
Yeah, thanks.
John, you had a link that you wanted to share. I'm not sure if you made reference to that, but I've got it here. I can put it in the comment section if you want to tell us what that is, and then we'll let you off to the rest of your night.
Yeah. So part of it came up, and probably, Dan Gookin's taken a different approach. Like, when people attack him, like the former city attorney of 20 years who worked with Dan for 10 years, called him out in a letter to the editor. And not only that, but then went to city council meeting and gave a public comment which really you're not supposed to do, like calling out a city official for things that they've done or said. But he basically called total BS on Dan Gookin in very strong terms, very direct. And Dan has just ignored it. When people write a letter to the editor, the Coeur d'Alene Press has said candidates can respond if somebody talks negatively about you. So I've taken a different approach than Dan. I've tried to like address and readdress, which maybe is bad because I'm not telling people what I would do. Like I saw, one of the guys there putting a comment like, what would you do that Woody hasn't done? And there's many things. You could go to my website, bettercda.com. I list them there. Happy to talk about them with you. But Mary Souza is one who just keeps attacking, and she wrote an email to her whole precinct, again, just calling into question my character and saying like, don't vote for him. He can't be trusted. And so the link that you would share is just kind of an open letter that I write to Mary Souza saying, basically a response to the things that she's writing to her precinct members, which again, back to your point, Dan, which I really appreciate what you guys are doing, Dan and Donna, about, don't tell people who to vote for, but give them accurate information. And Mary Souza is a KCRCC precinct committee whatever. They don't call them precinct committee women, I guess, but she does that for precinct 407. And instead of just giving information, she's telling people who to vote for, which is Dan Gookin is who she's endorsing, which is different than the KCRCC, which there's a lot that goes into that. But she does that, and she, again, just provides false information or scare tactics about me and about Debbie and about Woody. She calls Woody's character into question over him receiving a letter from me and sitting on it for a week and not like, oh, why didn't he report that to the press sooner? Like, really? Like, that's the dumbest criticism I've ever heard. How can you criticize his character over a letter he received from somebody?
So that link there in the comment section is John Pulsipher's response to what Mary Souza had to say in probably a whatever that column is in the Coeur d'Alene Press. I'm not sure where she published that, but this is your response to it. So for our viewers, you can link to that there in the comment section, and that published to in the comment section on any platform that you're watching.
Again, what you're doing is a noble thing. And I'm appreciative of everybody that is running. I appreciate men that are extremely busy in their business with employees and family life that say, you know what, I'm going to take on the abuse. I'm going to take on the criticism, the attacks, the accusations, the lies. But I'm going to, regardless, I'm going to do my best to run for a position that I believe that I'm qualified for. And Damon, again, bro, if you're comparing John to Woody, bro, go back and watch our interview. My impression of Woody was not real favorable after that. I'm going to just say that because the dude, whether he was intending to or not, came away with he left me with the impression that he don't really know much that goes on in our city. So or not my city, but the city of Coeur d'Alene.
You don't give endorsements, but you give your impressions.
Well, I'm giving, first things. And it's no different than Debbie, don't say that you're going to support small businesses in Kootenai County or in Coeur d'Alene rather, and then your business is in California. It's not even here. You're not employing anybody in the local economy here. So, it's...
Yeah, and that's what happens when you have people in office and candidates who are running for office who just are not held accountable. And we've removed from our repertoire asking difficult questions, which we do here. That is what we're doing here on Liberty Without Compromise.
Yeah, and here's my last thought before we'll turn over to you for closing comments. This qualification stuff, sometimes it's a fine line because obviously you want somebody that understands how things work in order to best represent. But at the same time, what we don't need career politicians. And I've been saying this for a very long time. And Damon, I appreciate the fact that you're going to go and check out John's website. I think that I really appreciate Damon. But here at the end of the day, politicians that have been in business perpetually for years, many terms, they're not impressive to me. There is nobody that's that important that doesn't do their time and then exit out, because this is the problem. We are creating these many little aristocracies, if you will, in our own communities because, well, these people have been our leaders for, like Mary Sousa. Okay, Mary, I think Mary would be a nice person. I'd love to sit down with her, but she pissed me off in one of the town halls one time because she talked down to the people by saying that we just don't understand how things work. So, she offended us. That ain't representing us, lady. But John, closing comments.
Yeah, so the closest thing you can see to a debate is so a lot of these candidate forums, we had the questions ahead of time. So candidates could prepare and come up with their statement that sounds good. However, if voters want to see how candidates perform on the fly, unscripted, not prepared with questions, there's a few places they can go. One is here, Liberty Without Compromise, any interview that was done with you guys. We had no questions ahead of time. Two, recently, Creme 2 News just interviewed every candidate. It was a 40-minute interview with each candidate, and you can watch the interviews there. And then there's a couple of real estate guys, North Idaho Experience, and I think everybody has been on there except I don't think Debbie Loftman's been on there, although I do believe they invited her. So that's another place people can go and get a feel for the candidates. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of homework, but yeah, honestly,
the other one
got to
would
do
be
their own homework. You can't trust in the big name groups. I was really disappointed. North Idaho Republicans, I thought they would at least talk to me, interview me. What am I supposed to do? Go beg and kiss the ring? I haven't done that with anybody. So
yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
Free men don't do that.
Just now found out. The other place you can go is Watchman Ministry. Yeah. They had voter guides, and it's a completely unbiased. Yes, they do. I had somebody ask me about this earlier this week. Yes, they do come from a biblical or conservative worldview where they're asking legitimate questions that help you, the voter, vet that, but they are in no way filtering. Yeah. They're asking the fair questions to all candidates. So if that is your worldview and you're truly looking toward those conservative values, you can vet each and every candidate who is being asked those same questions and done fairly. And then that Watchman Ministry, they're not endorsing or recommending any candidate. They are yet another outlet where you can go watch those video interviews, go read the responses in the surveys that they have published on their website. The QR code is up in the corner there for their website. And then, John, you could actually, when you're done, you could post in the live comment section the links to some of the others that you had mentioned. That would help us out.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks.
John, we really appreciate you coming back on, and we wish you and all the other candidates nothing but the best. Stay strong and courageous, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.
And this is a reminder that if any of the other candidates have a burr under their saddle to come back on, set the record straight or say anything that they didn't before, come on. Mm-hmm. We'll give you a platform. Debbie, Dan,
yep,
Woody,
we gotcha. Randy Neal's making some questions there in the comment section. Maybe you can look those over, because what we've got coming up, you guys have been waiting for. This is an explosive segment. We're releasing never before heard audio from, it was a private phone call done legally involving Pastor Paul Van Noy. And things have really come to a head with him lately, where you got this clash of religion and politics, and Candlelight Church has been in the spotlight a lot, at least in the social media circles, where his Pastor Paul Van Noy and some of the people that are political influencers who are surrounding him are very active in these last days leading up to this next election. So yeah, we're going to have a conversation that sheds light on this behind the scene influence of Pastor Paul Van Noy and what it really looks like when faith, power, and politics collide. And you're going to hear him in his own words. We withheld that in January. We read transcripts feeling that we had built trust with our community and our listeners. And I guess we were coming in a little soft on that. We're accused of, we made up transcripts and made up this conversation.
And I want to set this up also to be very clear. We did not set up or encourage this to take place. What Paul Van Noy does not accept is that there were many in Candlelight that were struck by why he would not align himself with me over Bob Norris. We're not going to hear go back and debate that. But there were people in his own congregation that left over the sheriff's race. There were people that left over his behavior. And this was a one-sided conversation. And Donnie, you brought this up earlier, and you were exactly right. We're going to play for you this audio. And I want you to understand that at points we're going to stop and we're going to talk, because I'm going to interject some behind-the-scene things for you that are back in the historical timeline that are going to show what an absolute liar Paul Van Noy, shepherd of megachurch Candlelight here in Kootenai County. So we are now on our end. We're going to have a one-sided conversation to Paul Van Noy. Since Paul Van Noy refused to meet with me, we're going to show you his manipulation and his lies. Let's go ahead and listen to this, and then as we need to, we're going to stop and interject some other
part of it is that everybody that knows law is aware that Dan doesn't. And everybody that knows law is aware that the sheriff does. And the problem is that your sheriff, your present sheriff, probably has made some mistakes that, and again, I'm not speaking authoritatively, but he's made some mistakes and made some statements and done some things that have caused a great deal of suspicion about him. But provability is an issue. And the sad part of it is that everybody that knows law is aware that Dan doesn't. And everybody that knows law is aware that the sheriff does. And the problem is that your sheriff, your present sheriff, probably has made some mistakes that, and again, I'm not speaking authoritatively, but he's made some mistakes and made some statements and done some things that have caused a great deal of suspicion about him. But provability is an issue. And so, for example, if Dan says, well, Sheriff, you did thus and so, it's very quick and easy for the sheriff to be able to say, prove it. Likewise, for Dan to be able to make a statement like, we're going to get rid of all the illegals, then it would be very quick and easy for the sheriff to say, how are you going to do that? And Dan will not be able to tell you how, because it is apparent, based on his statements, that he can't. It's very complicated, but the problem is
Okay, let's stop here.
Yeah, I actually want to explain a couple of things. I'm off over here on the screen, but I'm gonna leave it as it is. I'm gonna leave that up there. But you're going to hear a little bit of clipping in this audio, and I want to ensure you this is not taken out of context. What is done is that second voice is just being edited out for privacy purposes. Now, Paul Van Noy, of course, knows who that is. This
was recorded August of 2024.
I'm going to tell you that. So we want the date.
And I want to go back, and I want to also say that, and I'm going to show this a little bit later on, January of 2024, I reached out requesting to meet Paul Van Noy. We're going to show you that email soon, but I want you to remember that I did this back in January, and it took, he never reached out until much later. We'll show that. But this individual was somebody that said, hey, why are you not meeting with Dan Wilson? And we're not satisfied with his answers and had this meeting. So here you have Paul Van Noy lying, saying that Dan Wilson doesn't know the law, and everybody knows that Dan Wilson doesn't know the law. What the hell does that mean, Paul? Hey, Paul, aren't you supposed to tell the truth as a pastor, as a shepherd, as an elder? So I guess being a certified, sworn police officer for 12 years, performing the duties of patrol, they just allowed me to do that, not knowing the law? You're a liar, Paul. And I think that it's hideous that you would tell an individual on the phone, you speak authoritatively. You're not saying, well, it's been said that he doesn't understand the law. And you mischaracterize something I said when I said we will get rid of all the illegals. Bring the context, Paul. And by the way, Paul, you never went to any of my town halls. So you once again are pulling out of your ass from January until August. You are repeating. You never, ever came and saw anything that I did, all the numerous public town halls and private meet and greets, you never did, even though you had many of your very own people saying you need to come and talk with Dan Wilson. So I just want to point this out. I'm going to stop and we're going to show when Paul is lying or speculating or passing gossip.
One other thing before you start that, just to reiterate, we have purposely edited out that other part of the conversation, but I assure you, Pastor Paul Van Noy did do the majority of the talking, so there's not a whole lot there that you're missing. But for those of you, I want you to engage in this conversation and not be hung up on that quote, this is edited or somehow out of context, and to bring you that proof and evidence, as you all have come to love this program for. We are providing the transcripts over on our website. Those will be available tomorrow for anybody listening back on the podcast or restreaming. It's at libertywithoutcompromise.com. For those of you live, it'll be up there tomorrow. And then it will just be sitting there so that the audio file along with the full transcripts. So if you ever feel like you're missing what the lead-in question was, that is going to be available on the website. So with that, let's continue.
I'm going to be very personal now. Bob Norris has, I would not call him my close friend, but he is my friend. And with him, I look him square in his eyes and I call him out. I talk to him man to man about things. And I've done so even very recently. But I will tell you this, he has never let me down. Every single thing I've asked him to do for me, he has done. And so he has my support. That's kind of the problem, you know, because I realize, is Bob a perfect guy? I don't know. I mean, but I'm supporting him, you know. Dan, I'm going to sound very arrogant now. Every politician, everybody running for office always calls my office and makes an appointment to see me. Dan has never done that. And I'm not asking him to. At this point, I'm probably not interested. But in Candlelight, we have members that are supporting Dan, and we have members that are supporting Bob. And I just want to let the chips fall where they may at this point. I kind of don't want to get into it. I'm divisive in our own church either, you know, because the people in our church that are saying, hey, we're supporting and promoting Dan, I just tell them that's awesome. What you feel is necessary. And they know where I stand, and we're not fighting about it, which is good. He sent me one email that was about one sentence, and it said, and this was, 2, 3, 4 months ago, I can't remember. It said something like, if you'd like to talk to me, this is my number. Thanks, Dan. And that's not how you get to me. And again, that sounds very arrogant, and I'm sorry, but gosh, please forgive me for what I'm about to say. I carry a pretty good weight in our community. And if people want to get to me, they got to get to me the right way. Fault Dan for that. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know our community. So I don't fault him for that. If he knew how much weight my voice carries in this community, I'm sure he would have probably offered to buy me dinner. Not send me an email saying, if you'd like to talk to me, here's my contact information. Literally was what he said. I mean, I'm summarizing and I might be misrepresenting it slightly. Pretty close to that. I think it was something, maybe it was a question and maybe a statement, but it was something in the neighborhood of a sentence or two, that something like, I'm Dan, hey, Paul, this is Dan Wilson. If you'd like to, communicate with me about, this upcoming race or something, here's my contact information. That was it. And I just deleted it. No offense. I'll tell you something more then. I did contact a person today.
Okay, we're going to break this up. We're going to bring up the first slide because Paul says, well, I reached out and wanted him to meet with me. Right? So I was expecting him to come to me when he is a pretty big thing here. And, I would have tried to take him out for dinner if I truly understood how great he is. Let's go back and actually look at this email. Now, I had people that were coming up to me at town halls all the time saying, hey, my pastor, he would love you. Have you talked to him? And I said, yes, I've talked to him. And this went on for months. And I said, I said I sent him an email asking for a meetup to meet him. And they would come back and say, well, he says that he never got anything. So I have the records of all the emails that I sent out to people that were going to his church to say, yes, I actually did reach out to him. So we're going to look at this very first slide here. This email was sent back in January 26th of 2024. And what it says, and I can't quite read it. Maybe would you just make it the full screen because I can't see.
I don't know that that's going to help you.
All right, let me get close.
Do you have your email on the paper that I can read it?
Let me actually. You know what? This is the problem of getting middle age. I can't see my stuff anymore. Here we go. Well, I got my workaround.
Okay, because I was going to say that as you pull, I want to recalibrate this conversation a little because I want for anybody who just joined us or if we didn't make this clear. This was a last election cycle. For those who have said, Dan, you lost, get over it. Like, why are you still talking about this? Just recalibrate. Yeah. Explain why are we playing this conversation, recorded conversation with Pastor Paul Van Noy? I know the answer, but I want to hear from you. Why is this relevant right now? Because number one, he's a liar and he should not be shepherding anybody. I'll be the one to say that. There is enough evidence pointing in his current behavior and past behavior that disqualifies him from the position that he's in. But he's also right now working to push more politicians. He wants to be a kingmaker. Exactly right. And that is the problem. So January of 24, the 26th to be exact, the subject line, request to meet with Pastor Paul Van Noy, and the attachment was the Idaho Sheriff Dan D.W. Wilson press kit. I didn't know if I was going to his direct email or not. So just in case it was open, here's what I said. Hello, I'm running for KC Sheriff as a Republican and would appreciate the opportunity to have a brief visit with Pastor Paul to introduce myself. I've included our press kit as well for more info on my background. You will also find more details on my website, theidahosheriff.com. Thank you in advance for your time. Regards. Now, I don't know about you, but my idea of having somebody chase after me the way it was being stated by Paul is pure bullshit. Because what I did is I was respectful and I said, hey, I've been told that I really should meet with you. I wasn't asking for an endorsement, just to be clear. But I'm getting to know people in this community. I'd gone to his church twice, but let's look at the attachment because he claims that it was vague, and this is going to be relevant a little later on when he says that there's nothing really about me. So that he could tell from this email. I don't know if we lost that from the stage or not. There we go. It just gets a little temperamental. So there's on the second slide. Okay, you got some. So we have what my original platform was, the things that I was going to focus on. It gave my background and my professional expertise, both as business and law enforcement, what my qualifications were, and my different social media websites, as well as the overall website to get whatever information that he deemed that he needed to learn more about me. So just in context, when we're listening to Paul, I don't kiss your ass because you're not my kingmaker. And there isn't anybody in this entire town that I ever went out and bought them a steak dinner or a dinner of any kind, because I don't do that. Well, I also think when you originally sent the email, it's pastor at. Yeah. And not knowing their structure, that you figure, okay, a guy of this stature, as he puts himself in the limelight, has somebody who's scheduling appointments for him. And so when I read your initial email, that was the direction of the email is, hey, if this is going to his admin assistant, it was written in that voice. Mm-hmm. I would like to schedule a time. Mm-hmm. You didn't know that necessarily. What else am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to go into a big long paragraph?
Paul, I've been a
follow-up?
fan of yours for so long, and I'm so on fire for getting this country right under the Biden administration that I would seek for you to get together with me, to meet with me, and give me your wisdom and be a Paul to a Timothy. Get real.
Well, I mean, you realize now that obviously was what he expected. That would have been the requirement. You know that now. You didn't at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, it was a professionally.
Let's go ahead and keep playing.
Email. Yeah, let me get that back up here. It will be queued.
That I
or
thought
left.
would be a good neutral mediator. And he said, and I really honest thought he would be completely neutral. And he said to me on the phone, he said, Paul, I would have to decline. I'll tell you why. Bob is a good sheriff. An imperfect man, but he's a good sheriff, and I know Dan cannot win. He said, for me, it would be a waste of time. And I think the sheriff kind of feels the same way. I'm not quoting the sheriff. I think that Bob sees Dan as more of an antagonist than a competitor. Dan's approach is Bob bashing. I mean, just go to the front page of Dan's website. It's all about the sheriff doesn't do this and the sheriff doesn't do that and he does this and he does that and he's a dirty, rotten guy. I'm summarizing. Instead of saying, I'm Dan Wilson and here's what I can do and here's what I will do. Bashing Bob. You know, Bob bashing is not a way to inspire Bob to actually have an honest, open, friendly debate. If somebody did that to me, if, somebody's going after me, and they do, people do this, they just are on the attack, I blow them off like a fly. I don't even give them the time of day. They come to me and say, hey, man, can I talk to you? But for your benefit, the person I asked is not a resident of our county. But it was a person of authority that I thought would be neutral. And he was very non-neutral. I mean, he said, look, I've been watching this at a distance, and Bob is your guy. He knows what he's doing. He's an imperfect man, but he's a good sheriff. And, so that was a surprise. I really didn't expect that. I would also like it, if possible, if I did make that available, I would like to have one person as witness in the room with me. Also has...
Okay, we're going to stop this real quick here. Do you have our website that you can pull up? This website is the same website that we had when I first ran. Paul says that my website is nothing but bashing Bob on the front page, and I don't talk about what I'm going to do. Again, here's a guy that's talking out of his ass that clearly did not ever go to any of my town halls, because those of you that went to my town halls, you heard me speak for 1 to 2 hours with all the solutions. I answered every one of your questions with a mastery on the subjects that I was speaking on, and I clearly had solutions for many of these issues, and they were backed by consultants that I spoke with that were authorities in their fields.
What I want to reiterate is that what we brought to Kootenai County was an election. It was of national proportions. We brought a website that was so robust. It had a built-in search function. We were having to become our own media outlet so that we could research stories and self-publish, because local media and legacy media was completely disinterested. And this is what it requires if you have an entire machine backed by that much funding and that much power. It is what it requires from people to do this on their own.
Go up to the very top, the tabs. We're not going to go, but look, there were pages that were dedicated to the issues with Bob Norris, but they were not the front and center. So again, not to get off on this for, on these tangents, but it's important to be showing you not only the amount of bullshit and lies that we were dealing with by a man of God, but if he did it with me, he's doing it with many others. And it's time that Paul Van Noy give an accounting for what he's been doing. Well,
it's like what you learn with anybody with bad behavior, and you learn this in your life and relationally. When somebody's exhibiting bad behavior, that is not the first and last time. That's the thing. It didn't start with you. It didn't start with that conversation. It didn't start with this instance. This person is showing you who they are. And I know you've heard it over and over again, but for those who are so tunnel vision with this guy and continue to protect him, we're just, all we can do is say it's our responsibility to show you. He is showing you who he is. And it may take time for you to emotionally wrap your arms around that and to where like intellectually you can grasp it. But that's what this is. This is a guy who is showing you who he is. And it's not the first time and it won't be the last. Go.
All right, let's pull that back up and start playing it.
Legal understanding. I'm not a lawyer. And what I would like to have is legal representation from somebody that knows the law well enough to answer or ask the right questions. You guys, you've already admitted that you would be coming to, talk to me about Dan, and a legal authority would be able to say that is not legal or that is not possible. I wouldn't know all the laws, but I have obviously good counsel, enough people at our church that have really good understanding from a neutral perspective of the legal environment and navigation of the legal environment. For example, let me give you an example. Dan Wilson says that he would deputize civilians and have reserve officers.
False. That's a lie. What he was talking about right there, and you'll see in the transcripts, is that these individuals that were speaking with Paul, they want to meet with him personally and discuss it more. This was what this phone call originally was. And he's saying, well, I need to have somebody there that understands the law so that, we can ask the questions and kind of, have somebody that knows whether or not what Dan's saying that he's going to do is truthful or not. And you just heard the very first lie that Paul said, that I was going to deputize all these citizens. That is absolutely not what I said. And you're flat out lying again, Paul, because if you would have taken the time to come to any of my town halls that were open to the public or meet with me one-on-one, even if I bought you coffee instead of, a dinner, if you would have gone to my website, if you watch any of my live podcasts during the entire election, you would have known exactly what I was saying when it comes to the reserve deputy program, which is lawful, as well as with the citizens posse. So let's keep going.
Well, don't let it be lost on you too that there was a lot said there in a couple of sentences. And one is he wants to bring legal representation that has political expertise. He is saying a lot in that statement because on one hand, he's feigning innocence. I don't really know about politics. I don't really know what's going on. So I have people that counsel me in this arena so that I can just stay aware. But he's keen enough to know that he's bringing in, these are just constituents of his church that want to meet with the pastor, with their pastor. And he's already discussing, I'm going to bring in legal counsel because I want to be prepared for correct political responses when you ask whatever questions it is that you're coming to ask. So apparently you can't just like meet with your pastor. Because
or deputies. Every single deputy, reserved or sworn as lay deputies, would have to be insured. And the liability to the county of insuring a bunch of people, let's just say it was me. Paul, I want you to be one of my sworn deputy volunteers. I'm going to have a deputy militia or army. The county would be liable for every action I made as a deputy, and the county would never allow it. The liability is far too great. You follow that logic? So that when Dan says stuff like, I'm just going to have a whole, army of, backup soldiers, that's a wonderful idea. I like it. I think Bob would like it.
That's a lie. At no point, and I challenge anybody to go through every video, the hundreds of videos that we have online, to ever show any time where I even remotely came close to saying that I wanted a standing army or a backup army or any of that. It's pure bullshit. And Paul, because he was listening to Matari and to Davalu Cummings, the former DHS human trafficking agent, that we're going to be talking about her a lot next week. You can actually see a video that somebody took of her the other day doing operations for Paul. It's an absolute lie. Because no different than the city of Spokane that saves over $800,000 a year because they use reserve officers. They're sworn officers performing the duties of a full-time officer, but they do it for free like I did for 12 years. You want to talk about community service. It's no different. In fact, it saves money. So they are insured the same for a liability. We don't get health insurance. We don't get retirement. You get the same amount of liability coverage that you do, but you get the labor for free. We can't afford more deputies. And I stated over and over again how we have the ability with as many retired law enforcement that are moving at young ages up to Kootenai County. And I talked to dozens that would be part of this, that would come and serve. And you're going to hear Paul here in just a second say that, and we have to pay them. That's horse shit again.
Then
you could pay them $1 if truly, but I never received any payment the entire time. So you're listening to Matari and Davalu coming talking points is my belief. And this is Paul regurgitating shit that he doesn't have any clue what he's talking about.
A reminder why we're playing this conversation with Pastor Paul Van Noy. It's relevant today, even though this was months ago and in a previous campaign season. You'll hear references to that. But it's Van Noy positioning himself as both a spiritual leader and a civic insider. What he's doing is he uses his role to subtly influence political perception while he continues to deny direct involvement. And you hear that all throughout this conversation. And this matters now because this is what he had been doing. It was what he was doing at that time. And it is what he continues to do in this current campaign season.
Keep playing.
Even possible, for a lot of reasons. The liability in particular, the insurance in particular, reserves or part-timers would have to be paid on payroll. It would cost the county in the neighborhood of thousands, millions maybe, to cover. Just for example, we spend $20,000 a year to insure our staff. And that's just 22 people. Mike Moreland and Eric Reed are members of Candlelight. I support them 100%. I love those men. And I know that there's been big problems. Sheriff's Department and the Spirit Lake PD. This falls under the list of, I think that Bob has made some mistakes. He does not attend Candlelight. He will call me his pastor. He will call me his pastor publicly. He will call me his pastor privately. He does not attend our church. He does call me often for counsel. Whenever he calls, I answer. Or I call him, he answers. And like I said, he's my friend. He's a friend. I wouldn't call him a close friend. We don't have, we don't go to dinner as couples. It's not, we don't have that kind of relationship. It's a professional, community relationship, probably because I see him in authority and he sees me in authority at a different level. I do not believe that Dan or Bob attend a local church. I'm pretty convinced that Dan does not. Although he professes to be a Christian, I do not believe he is involved in a local church. In fact, I know you're going to probably take a lot of what I'm saying.
Here comes the gossip part. Just to be clear, he's actually gossiping to this former parishioner.
To him, but I've been told that he was harmed, hurt, or otherwise suffered some kind of what he believed to be injustice in a Catholic church, although he was a evangelical at one point and led an Awana group, as a Bible church type of evangelical Bible church children's ministry. And so his Christian experience is probably as flimsy as is Bob's. And so they kind of both play on the same field there.
My Christianity is flimsy, huh? So where do you get off, Paul, never having talked to me directly? How are you telling other people what my faith is and what my experience is? And just to tell you how ridiculous it is, I don't even know how to pray the rosary. The only time I've ever been in a Catholic church is attending a midnight mass with friends and going to funerals and weddings.
It's hard not to take that personally, but what he's actually doing is it's a religious control and a political control, and it's a tactic. It's strategic equivalence, because he did it multiple times throughout this conversation where he equates both of the candidates, Bob Norris and then Dan Wilson. He equates both candidates' flaws because he wants to appear objective, but his narrative consistently favors the incumbent, Bob Norris. And, you know, and in order to do that, he had to deploy what he heard as gossip, because otherwise, what does he have to interject?
He is right now
you?
actively, during this conversation, actively in a smear campaign.
Oh, of course.
And I'm curious as to why he kept running his mouth.
I mean, psychological warfare. He's using what he thinks is a soft friend speaking in a friend tone, or advisor signaling credibility.
Paul might be a little bit surprised at how much time I've spent in the Word of God. Maybe we should compare notes. Well, of course, he is way older than me, so if
a little more time on the
who
planet.
knows? All right.
I concern myself with our community, and I want what's best. Another note: what do you think of rank choice voting? I will give you one piece of information. You should align yourself directly against it. The marketing of ranked choice voting is it returns the vote to the people, and that is a marketing lie. It's a process of elimination voting system that takes potentially good candidates out of the running, strict numbers, and it's not a good...
I think that's really the crux. This is part one. We're going to bring in part two next week, which will probably take up the entire broadcast. We may end up having to break it into two.
You may have said this earlier.
Yeah.
This is part one. This is one conversation. And then there is a follow-up in-person meeting that happens where we have legally obtained audio of that. And so that will be, I assure you, it gets even better.
Well, let's be clear. We're going to show a follow-up email here, because I want to show you again the gaslighting that Paul Van Noy participates in. But let's go back and talk about the parishioners. Frequently, people would come up to me and they would plead with me to go. Good intentions, great supporters would encourage me and plead with me, just, go meet with Paul. And I'm like, I already sent that out. He knows that I'm running. Many of you from early on have already talked to him. There's a reason that he has never responded to my email. You already heard him. He said he was offended because I didn't really understand what kind of clout, and that's not how I get to him. I need to call him, make an appointment. And then, those people would go to him, and I would flat out tell him, you go on your own behalf. Do not go on my behalf. You know this. Anybody that knows me and knows my code, I do not get other people, as he will accuse me coming up here, of carrying the water for me. Never happens. Nobody carries the water for Dan Wilson. That's part of the code that I live by, the code that my dad taught me, the code that most of these doinks in Kootenai County, they're in politics, don't even understand. They have no code that they live by. Look at this last email, and I'm going to read it because it's you already heard what I wrote to Paul that he claims was really non-specific. So 245 days after my original email, after the entire summer, in late September, about 5-6 weeks before the election, Paul sends an email 245 days later to us. And this is what he says. Hi, Dan. I was recently told by a member of Candlelight that I don't want to talk to you. This is untrue. In fact, it seemed to me that you did not want to talk with me. Kind of contradicts what he told the parishioner in that piece where you said that, he wasn't even interested in talking to me anymore.
Yeah, which thing's true?
Mm-hmm. Several months ago, you did send me an email inviting me to seek you out. Frankly, that offended me, and I discarded the email. So we know that it got to him directly. I do not intentionally seek out candidates, nor do I look to engage in the political process unless it directly relates to moral biblical issues. Yet all political issues do. Therefore, and for that reason, I have been viewed as a politically active pastor. This is an accusation that I am unashamed about and do not deny. That said, I do not see myself as one on a political mission, as I think you would understand. So basically, he doesn't get involved unless it deals with moral issues, blah, blah, blah. Well,
yeah, I don't think so. It's clearly trying to influence the outcome of elections, clearly trying, bringing people in with his advisors and
you mean Lucky and Aaron
promoting.
from the KC Spectator and Stephanie Fetzer.
An absolute embarrassment. If you have a man who should be taking the lead, taking the helm, shepherding his flock.
Wait, how about having the spirit?
Sorry, but and having discernment of the spirit, and he's bringing in loudmouth, opinionated, pushy, vile women who cannot keep their mouths shut, who want to be at the forefront of the community and in the middle of the conversation. And that's who he's taking his advice and his marching orders from.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been
More on
approached.
that later.
I've been approached by many of your supporters, and have told several of them that I am easy to find. That you should make an appointment to see me, as all other candidates have done over the years. It was easy for your people to get to me, but they weren't my people, Paul. Just to be clear. Therefore, they understood. I have never had a candidate for office send or allow their advocates to pursue me rather than coming personally. Well, Paul, if I send out an email, which is, hey, this is the most respectful of your time. You don't even have to have your personal assistant answer it. It's an email, which you had. We read it. I put it out there saying I would love to have a little bit of your time to come and introduce myself and tell you, about me. I'm running for office. How can we make this happen? I don't send people for me, Paul. In the event that you don't know, I offered to host you here at Candlelight for a public forum. Liar, never happened. You never sent anything to me. I told more than one of your very active supporters to inform you of this offer. However, I have heard nothing of it. It could be that my mistake was sending the message rather than inviting you myself. However, I will be redundant if I tell you again that I have never sought out a candidate. Can't make this stuff up. Dan, some of the aforementioned supporters you have working with you have developed a campaign strategy of Bob Norris bashing rather than Dan Wilson promoting. This is the wrong approach. Moreover, now there is a slanderous campaign against me. Your comment to one of the Candlelight members made me wonder if you are misinformed about what is occurring or if you are directing the negative campaign strategy your advocates are advancing. Again, Paul, your congregates, not mine. At what point do you take responsibility for your congregates? Those sheep that you're supposed to be shepherding, but all of a sudden they're my people that are doing bad things. I don't even know what they were doing, but I can't tell you what your people were doing. Aaron and Lucky from day one when I announced, making the slanderous comments, bringing up lies about abuse, about sexuality, diminishing my service. These are your advisors, Paul, not mine. You hypocrite. From what I have been told, you are a believer and have a long reputation in Spokane. Moreover, I've been briefed about your stand regarding the Constitution, borders, and many things. I have no bone to pick with you on these very serious issues. However, as I have mentioned to the seething Dan advocates, the approach they are taking and the slanderous campaign tactics they are engaging in is not becoming of you as a professing believer, nor is it of them. Right back at you, Paul, Lucky, and Stephanie. They represent you. You've never publicly addressed it, but what we do know, because we have the screenshots, is how you would go in and like their comments when they were saying slanderous, rude things about me or people that were working on my campaign. We've got the screenshots. We're ready to bring those receipts, Paul. So you were absolutely approving of what Stephanie and Aaron were doing. Dan, take the high road. If you want to be the sheriff of Kootenai County, do so by trusting the Lord and representing him with integrity, not by bashing your opponent. Your advocates are hurting you, and your website isn't helping. We do not need Christians fighting with Christians in this country or in this county. Too much is at stake. Please remember, whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Matthew 23:12, the New King James Version. This is the same advice I have given to Bob, praying for us all. Well, Paul, I'm not the one that's involved in 3 lawsuits right now for over $7.5 million for defamation and for not understanding the law. I mean, that's exactly what a First Amendment and a Fourth Amendment violation is not an understanding of the law. But I digress. I have one last slide here, and I'm going to shoot a verse right back to Paul because I'm calling Paul out. This has to be said, and I will be the one to say it. This comes from the book of Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 1, 7 through 9. And Paul's an elder. He's a pastor. This applies to him. For an overseer, as God's steward, must be above reproach. He must not be arrogant. Oh, don't buy me a steak dinner. He must not be arrogant or quick-tempered or a drunkard or violent or greedy for gain, but hospitable, a lover of good, self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. He must hold firm to the trustworthy word as taught so that he may be able to give instructions in sound doctrine and also to rebuke those who contradict it. You cannot read the emails or listen to what he said in the audio transcripts there and come away with that he's not arrogant, that he has goodwill. He has absolutely no integrity because he wouldn't reach out to me. I didn't bow down. I don't bow down to people, and I'm not going to ever bow down to you, Paul. I only bow before one, and that is the one that's most high. So I am angry because if this was coming from somebody that was the KCRCC or something else, yeah, of course, we get pissed off when we are lied about and maligned and smeared. But I have extreme animosity because Paul is calling himself a shepherd of people, a pastor, an authority on God's word. We have one last video that has come out in the past week. We're going to give you the link so you can actually go and listen to him in his own words. But this is, 16 seconds. Go ahead and play that if you can find it.
I may be a statesman, but I am a prophet. I am a pastor. I am a spokesperson for God. I'm a prophet. I am a spokesperson for God.
This is why I cannot stand the modern, what we're calling church. A couple weeks ago, we played a clip from Nathan Apfelt from the religion business. This is a business, and these guys are wolves in sheep clothing. I, unbeknownst to Paul, do have a mentor, a pastor that I am in regular contact with, and I do attend his service. This man runs circles around Paul when it comes to humility and to good, sound doctrine and advice. Paul Van Noy is nothing more than a showboater. We've been told that he makes over $400,000 a year. I want somebody to come and prove me wrong. I want to see it. I want to have some faith restored. The Candlelight, that you folks are not paying him $400,000 a year. And then are you paying for his house? Are you paying for his travel? Are you paying for his books that he's writing? Are you paying for what else? And I understand that they have a Pakistani pastor that's there, that his salary is so small he can't live on his own with his family. He has to live with another family that they've lived with them for 4 years. If this is true and Paul Van Noy makes $400,000 a year and yet there's another pastor in need, that is wrong. I want somebody to prove me wrong. But until this time, I'm going to continue to attack Paul Van Noy as being the wolf in sheep clothing, the fraud that he is. And this fight right now that's going on between Paul Van Noy and Brent Reagan and the KCRCC is hilarious to watch. I'm absolutely having a ball watching of the dysfunction, and they both need to fall.
I do want to say I've got a QR code up in the corner of the screen that has the rest of that, the word from Paul Van Noy, since we had a short video clip that was just that 16 seconds or so, and you want to understand the context surrounding that, go ahead and use that QR code for the link to YouTube to get the rest of that. I'm going to bring that down, so I wanted to let everybody know why that was there. But yeah, watching the battle now that's going between these two factions has just been like, look, you were taking the heat for a long time, and now we sit back and we're watching the infighting.
Well, I just look at the dude. He's not disciplined, obviously, with his diet.
Now, I was going to ask, does he have an open invitation to come on to the program?
Paul wants to come on this show. He can, but he has to be prepared because there's not going to be any softballs. I'm absolutely, of all the people in this community that I have beefs with, and there are quite a few, as you know, who are doing, in my belief, wrong. And my pastor calls it private judgment, to where you look at an action and then you compare it with scripture and you pray about it and you ask the Spirit to give you a good idea as to whether or not what you are perceiving is true or if it's false. And then you act according to what the Spirit leads you to. There are 3 people in this community right now that I have bigger beefs with than even Brent Reagan. And that's Paul Van Noy, it's Tim Remington, and John Padula. John Padula, a liar. We've already proven this. Tim Remington, a liar and a coward. And I'll say it to their faces publicly because this is what they did. We've already shown the lies that they promoted. And Paul, all pastors, all claiming that they are following the Lord.
And it doesn't matter that they're proven liars or that you brought the proof. It's how dare you air a conversation that they thought was private. How dare you do that? Yeah. Legally obtained, but how dare you? We're going to get stuck on the right now, instead of like seeing the evil and lies for what it is, we're going to get stuck on how dare Dan Wilson bring that to the forefront. How dare you do that? You're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, we're going to close out, but I want you young men, anybody that's under 80 years old, to remember, if you are just a common man like me, somebody that works for a living, has family, you, if you have the Spirit, are more than qualified to call out evil behavior in these brood of vipers that are running these current Christ-centered organizations, or should be Christ-centered. It's not the church. The church is believers gathered together. It's not a building and an organization. I want you guys out there to be strong and courageous in everything that you do. We don't have a lot of time. We never have. What are you doing tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, and the week and the month to come to do your part, to do the heavy lifting? What are you doing to make your Savior pleased? What are you doing to help your fellow man, your fellow American in your community, as we're commanded to love our neighbors as we do ourselves? So remember to pray for my friend, a true believer, Jim Harbin. Love you, Jim.
For those of you who join partway through the program, you can needle drop back at any time to where we started this conversation tonight. We got the Sheriff's helicopter program. He's still trying to cram down your throat. Bob Norris and whoever's backing him that really want that helicopter. Go listen more about that at the beginning. And then also that conversation with candidate for mayor, Coeur d'Alene Mayor John Pulsipher. You can go back and revisit that. Had a great conversation with him. I'd say transparency was there, and he's got a sense of humor. Guy's got a sense of humor. And then, of course, exposing this audio conversation with Pastor Paul Van Noy. You're going to want to share this. This will increase exponentially as you share this broadcast to your page or profile or in that private message, however you can. That is your responsibility. That is the thing you can do to continue exposing lies and evil. We can do our part. You got to do yours. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast. Visit our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com. There's going to be more with the Pastor Paul Van Noy transcription so you can hear both sides of that conversation and understand that it is definitely in context. LibertyWithoutCompromise.com. That'll be up tomorrow. For those of you who enjoy podcasts, you can listen and subscribe wherever you get your shows. And then also remember to like and subscribe to those pages, our YouTube channel that's at the Idaho Sheriff. Like and subscribe because all past episodes are archived there on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to that Liberty Without Compromise page on Facebook, the Idaho Sheriff. He's always going to be the Idaho Sheriff. Doesn't matter how chafed anybody gets about it. Get chafed all you want. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're already looking forward to seeing you next week.
Okay.